So, as you may have heard, my name is Patrick. I work at RBC, the Royal Bank of Canada. I'm on the social impact team, which means I play two roles. The first role is around I support the corporate citizenship team in doing all the cool community engagement activations for RBC. So when we talk about communities prospering, that's us. When we're talking about how we show up environmentally, how we show up in the community, that's the team that I work for. Another element of that is I represent RBC Foundation, which is a registered charity. And if any of you in the audience have any cool ideas for starting a charity, please come talk to me. I am a grant maker. I can write you a check for money to support your charity. So what I wanted to talk to you about is RBC Future Launch. But before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit more about myself and my experience. I was born in 1994 in Mississauga, Ontario, just west of here, to immigrant parents. My parents immigrated here from the Philippines in the 1990s. Back in the Philippines, my mom was an accountant and my dad was a lawyer. But unfortunately, when they decided to immigrate here, my dad's law degree didn't transfer over so easily. So he worked in warehouses and shipping and logistics, just not what he studied in the Philippines because of how his degrees and credentials transferred. My mom had to take some extra education to eventually get her CPA designation. Shout out to the CPA team that was here earlier today. And it's super important to think about my parents' experience because they really struggled. They had a vision. They wanted to come to Canada for this greater life, this prosperity that is so typical in the immigrant experience. And they reinforced in me and my sister that if we did well in school and we studied hard, you know what, we'd be okay. So I did just that. And what they didn't tell me was that this was under the assumption that I would only go into one of four careers: engineering, teaching, law, accounting. These are the only things that mattered to my parents. And according to them and to my younger self, these were pretty much the only things I could or should be doing. Obviously, I know now that there are many more careers, but back then I really believed that if it wasn't any of those four, it wasn't a career, it was just a job. And going through elementary school and into high school, I'd have conversations with my friends about what I wanted to do next. Oh, what school are you going to? Oh, what are you studying? What are you taking next year? And the answers we gave typically tended toward those four things. It was, oh, I want to go to med school. I want to go to law school. I'm going to be an engineer. I want to be a teacher. This is what we saw. This is what we knew. But when we went into university, these answers began to change. We went from wanting to be astronauts, doctors, lawyers, inventors, to not knowing what we wanted to do anymore. Why the sudden shift? Did our interests change? Well, yeah, you take Psychology 101 and find out it's not for you. Of course your interests change. Did Canada change? Absolutely Canada changed. Were we ready at the time of graduation to make a decision about our careers? Absolutely not. Today's Canada is drastically different from the Canada that my parents envisioned. The rules aren't the same anymore. The jobs they knew, the jobs they encouraged us to get, those don't necessarily exist anymore. We're entering the world of work just as it's being transformed by technology, by diversity, by politics, and by the aging demographics. Jobs are changing like never before. Advanced technology like automation, AI, blockchain, digital media is on the cusp of revolutionizing nearly every job description there is. Whether you're in the dairy industry, whether you're in journalism, whether you're in biomedical science, these technologies are drastically changing the way the world works, the way these jobs work. The diplomas and degrees we get from school aren't enough to land a job anymore, unfortunately. Now there's a greater emphasis on the skills that we obtained from our education experience. Can you communicate? Can you work in a team? These things are more important than the fact that you got a 94 in Calculus 101. And Unfortunately, it seems like companies want us to have job experience before we can work there. But how can we get job experience if they want us to have experience before we even start? This is, with all these different factors in play, the 1994 Canada that my parents knew, the one that they saw, quickly changed. I did not feel prepared to enter the workforce when I graduated university. I didn't do any cool, prestigious high school internships. I worked at Tim Hortons. You know, like I was a baker. I gave Timbits to people. I didn't do things like TKS. Instead of majoring in accounting or engineering, I did the liberal arts and science. Shout out to STEAM. And then after that, I did a master's degree in something that I was only kind of interested in because it delayed the job hunt for one more year. If you really think about it, these experiences are fairly typical for many young people today. But I'm just one person with one set of experiences. Imagine an entire generation filled with anxiety, filled with disruption, filled with a lack of preparedness. Imagine an entire economy built on these same things. This is an issue for all of us. Think about all the vacant positions in the future due to a skills gap. How can companies serve their clients? How can we serve our communities? How can we serve Canada if we, the future workforce, don't feel prepared to do so? That's scary to think about, isn't it? But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that way. We have the opportunity to change systems to make sure we're prepared for the future of work. Even with my obscure educational background and Tim Hortons experience, I ended up at a job at RBC, working with charities to do cool things for young people. And in doing so, I learned about the value of having the appropriate skills, having the appropriate career guidance networks, and the importance of co-ops and practical work experience. I just learned that I had these skills. I just learned to refine them and be a professional. These are the avenues in which young people like ourselves can feel prepared for the future. I felt empowered and inspired to help my peers see those same values. We, and I mean you, are in the best position to make significant positive change for Canada. Look around. The fact that we're even in here, in this room, in Toronto today is proof that these massive tech companies want us, they want our ideas to innovate, to create the most innovative and best future for Canada. But, and this is a big but, if you asked me in my final year of undergrad if I was ready to slide into those roles and make the big decisions for Canada, if you asked me in high school if I was ready to make a decision about my career, I'd say absolutely, absolutely not. And that's what RBC Future Launch is all about, making sure you're ready to slide into those meaningful roles and build the amazing future for Canada. I want to show you a quick clip of what exactly we're talking about.
We all need Canada's youth to succeed. We need youth to help design drones to put out forest fires and ensure artificial intelligence doesn't outsmart us all. We need youth to help cure the diseases we don't even know exist yet.
We need new skills
for a completely new job force.
But we're not prepared.
That's why RBC created Future Launch, to empower Canadian youth for the jobs of tomorrow.
So for the next 10 years, RBC is investing massive amounts of money into community programs, into organizations like the Knowledge Society, like Boys and Girls Club, like We Charities, to allow us to develop programming, because we cannot do this by ourselves. The partners that we have allow us to create the skills, create the networks, and create the practical work experience opportunities that these young people crave. But please be on the lookout for any future opportunities. We need you, the students, to get involved, to be eager. You have the skills, you have the optimism, you have the gumption to do things like the Knowledge Society, to do things like build and start companies and nonprofits. We've made a long-standing commitment to work with our stakeholders, to work with governments, to work with universities, to build a future that's inclusive and prosperous for all of us. And the one last thing I want to leave you with is that innovation isn't just about technology. Innovation is about being creative and thinking outside the box to solve a problem. Innovative thinking is what will help us drive to impact, and it'll allow us to think differently about our problems and our approach to solve them. Innovation is what pushes our society forward. Without innovation, how can we create a future where we're all meaningfully employed and living a prosperous life? Thank you.